There is a bottle sitting in millions of kitchens right now, probably yours, that researchers have been quietly studying for decades in connection with one of the things people over 50 fear most. Not heart disease. Not weight. Memory. Sharpness. The ability to stay present in a conversation, to find the word you're looking for, to walk into a room and remember exactly why you came. And the food at the center of that research costs just a few dollars a bottle. We're talking about extra virgin olive oil. Not a supplement. Not a prescription. A pantry staple that has been on human tables for thousands of years. So the question worth sitting with today is this: what does the science actually say, how plausible is the biology, and what does realistic daily use even look like for someone in their 50s or 60s? Let's walk through it carefully, honestly, and without any hype. First, let's acknowledge what changes after 50, because context matters enormously here. The brain is not a static organ. Throughout our 20s and 30s, it has remarkable capacity to adapt, repair, and build new connections. But as we move into our 50s, several things begin to shift in ways that are measurable and real. Inflammation, that low-grade, slow-burning kind that doesn't come with a fever or obvious symptoms, tends to increase with age. Researchers sometimes call this inflammaging, a combination of the words inflammation and aging, and it appears to play a meaningful role in how cognitive function changes over time. Oxidative stress also accumulates, essentially, the cellular wear and tear that comes from decades of normal metabolism, environmental exposure, and the ordinary business of being alive. Blood flow to the brain can become less efficient. The protective structures around neurons can become more vulnerable. None of this is destiny. None of it means decline is inevitable or rapid. But it does mean that what we eat, consistently, over years, genuinely has the opportunity to influence the environment those brain cells are living in. And that's the open door that extra virgin olive oil walks through. Here's where the mechanism becomes genuinely interesting. Extra virgin olive oil, and it does matter that we're talking about the extra virgin variety specifically, contains a remarkable class of plant compounds called polyphenol. These are not vitamins. They are not minerals. They are bioactive molecules that plants produce for their own protection, and when we consume them, research suggests they interact with our biology in ways that may be meaningful for brain health. The specific polyphenol in high-quality extra virgin olive oil include oleocanthal, hydroxytyrosol, and oleuropein, among others. Oleocanthal, in particular, has attracted serious scientific attention because laboratory and animal research suggests it may influence the way certain proteins associated with cognitive aging are handled in the brain. Researchers have described it, informally, as having a profile somewhat similar to certain anti-inflammatory compounds, not identical, and we must be careful not to overstate that parallel, but the biological logic is there, and it's being investigated rigorously. The second piece of the mechanism is what olive oil does for inflammation more broadly. A number of studies suggest that the polyphenol in extra virgin olive oil help modulate inflammatory pathways throughout the body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is associated with a wide range of age-related changes, and the brain is not exempt from that. When researchers look at populations that consume olive oil consistently as part of a broader eating pattern, the Mediterranean diet being the most studied example, they observe associations with slower cognitive decline and lower rates of conditions that affect memory and thinking. Now, observational research cannot prove that olive oil is the single cause of those benefits. People who eat Mediterranean-style diets are doing many things simultaneously, eating more vegetables, more fish, more legumes, less ultra-processed food. But when researchers try to isolate olive oil's contribution, the associations remain interesting and they persist across multiple large population studies. One major European study following tens of thousands of adults over many years found that higher olive oil consumption was associated with better cognitive performance over time, even after adjusting for other dietary factors. That is not proof. But it is a signal worth taking seriously. The third biological point is about the oil itself as a delivery mechanism. Fat-soluble nutrients, including certain antioxidants in vegetables and carotenoids in leafy greens, require dietary fat to be properly absorbed by the body. When you drizzle olive oil over a salad, cook vegetables in it, or add it to a dish with tomatoes and dark leafy greens, you are not just adding flavor. You are potentially increasing the bioavailability of other protective compounds in those foods. So extra virgin olive oil may function, in part, as a kind of amplifier for a whole eating pattern. That is a plausible, evidence-supported idea, and it helps explain why researchers keep seeing benefits associated with the full Mediterranean pattern rather than any single isolated food. So what does realistic use actually look like? Not complicated. Not expensive. A generous pour, perhaps a spoonful or two, of extra virgin olive oil used as a finishing drizzle over roasted vegetables, blended into a simple salad dressing, or stirred into warm soup just before serving. You do not need to cook everything in it or consume it by the glass. The populations in the Mediterranean region who appear to have the most favorable cognitive outcomes tend to use it consistently and liberally as their primary culinary fat, meaning it largely replaces butter, refined seed oils, and processed spreads rather than being added on top of everything else. Look for bottles that say extra virgin and ideally have a harvest date on the label, because polyphenol content declines with age and light exposure. Store it in a dark cupboard, away from the stove. Buy smaller bottles and use them within a few months of opening. That's it. That's the realistic version. Now for the honest caveats, and this channel will always give you these, because you deserve the full picture. Extra virgin olive oil is calorie-dense. A spoonful or two daily fits comfortably into most eating patterns, but if you're adding it to an already high-calorie diet without any adjustment, the total picture matters. It is a fat, albeit a healthful one, and quantity still counts. Additionally, if you have certain digestive conditions or are on medications that interact with dietary fats or with specific plant compounds, it's worth having a conversation with your doctor before making significant changes. This video, this entire channel, is general education based on published research. It is not medical advice, it is not a treatment plan, and it is not a substitute for the personalized guidance that only your own physician or registered dietitian can give you based on your specific health situation. And the larger caveat, the one that needs to be said clearly, olive oil is not a cure for cognitive aging. It does not reverse memory loss. It is not going to undo decades in a matter of weeks. What the research suggests, and this is genuinely worth holding on to, is that a consistent pattern of eating that includes extra virgin olive oil alongside vegetables, legumes, fish, and whole grains may be associated with a more favorable cognitive trajectory over the long term. That's a real and meaningful thing. It's just not a miracle, and it shouldn't need to be. The modest, consistent, realistic interventions are the ones that actually accumulate into a life that feels sharp and capable and present at 70 and beyond. So here's the recap. After 50, the brain faces increased inflammation, oxidative stress, and slower repair, real biological shifts that the right food environment may help buffer. Extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenol, particularly oleocanthal and hydroxytyrosol, that research links to anti-inflammatory and potentially neuroprotective effects. It also helps the body absorb protective compounds from other foods, making the whole eating pattern stronger. Practical use is simple, a spoonful or two daily as your primary culinary fat, in a bottle with a harvest date, stored properly. The evidence is observational and still evolving, but it is consistent, plausible, and genuinely promising. One affordable pantry staple. Used with intention. Over time. That is what the science actually supports. If you want more of this, calm, evidence-based, honest longevity nutrition,